Former President Donald Trump is no stranger to sweeping tax reforms. His tenure in the White House was marked by significant changes to the tax code, aimed at stimulating economic growth and providing relief to both corporations and individuals. His 2017 tax cuts, a cornerstone of his economic agenda, slashed rates for corporations and individuals, promising a surge in economic growth. These cuts were touted as a means to boost investment, create jobs, and increase wages for American workers. The administration argued that by reducing the tax burden, businesses would have more capital to expand and innovate, ultimately benefiting the broader economy. Now, with the 2017 bill set to expire, Trump is back with a proposal to extend those cuts, setting the stage for yet another heated debate about fiscal responsibility, economic inequality, and the role of government. The proposal has sparked intense discussions in Congress, with supporters claiming that extending the tax cuts will continue to drive economic growth, while critics argue that it will exacerbate the national debt and widen the gap between the rich and the poor. This time, however, the stakes are even higher. The economic landscape has shifted dramatically since the original tax cuts were implemented. The COVID-19 pandemic has left a lasting impact on the economy, with many businesses still struggling to recover and millions of Americans facing financial uncertainty. The stock market has experienced unprecedented volatility, and the future remains uncertain. The national debt is ballooning, and the social safety net is already stretched thin after years of austerity measures and the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. The federal government has had to increase spending to support public health initiatives, unemployment benefits, and other critical services. As a result, the debate over extending the tax cuts is not just about economic policy, but also about the moral and ethical responsibilities of the government to its citizens. Trump's proposal to double down on tax cuts has reignited a long-standing debate. Can we afford to give more tax breaks to corporations and the wealthy? Or should we prioritize investments in social programs that benefit everyday Americans? Proponents of the tax cuts argue that a thriving business environment will lead to more job opportunities and higher wages, ultimately lifting everyone. On the other hand, opponents believe that the focus should be on strengthening the social safety net, ensuring that all Americans have access to essential services like healthcare, education, and housing. The outcome of this debate will have far-reaching implications for the future of the American economy and the well-being of its citizens. Trump's tax plan doesn't come cheap. According to estimates by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, extending the 2017 tax cuts would add a staggering $4 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. This figure, equivalent to roughly the GDP of Germany, represents a significant increase in the country's already massive debt burden. The national debt, currently hovering around $36 trillion, has been a source of concern for economists and policymakers for years. Adding another $4 trillion to this already unsustainable figure raises serious questions about the long-term economic health of the nation. Critics argue that such a move could lead to higher interest rates, inflation, and a weaker dollar, ultimately harming the very people the tax cuts are supposed to help. To offset the projected increase in the national debt, Trump and his Republican allies have proposed significant cuts to social programs, namely Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. These proposed cuts are part of a broader strategy to reduce federal spending and address the growing budget deficit. However, the implications of such cuts extend far beyond mere numbers on a balance sheet. These programs, designed to provide healthcare and food assistance to low-income Americans, are often targeted by fiscal hawks seeking to reduce government spending. Medicaid and SNAP are lifelines for many, ensuring that the most vulnerable populations have access to essential services. The debate over these cuts is not just about fiscal responsibility, but also about the moral and ethical obligations of a society to care for its less fortunate members. The proposed cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, while presented as a necessary measure to rein in spending, would have devastating consequences for millions of Americans who rely on these programs for their basic needs. For many, Medicaid is the only source of health care, and SNAP is the difference between having food on the table and going hungry. The anxiety and uncertainty these proposed cuts have generated are palpable, with many families fearing for their future. Medicaid, a joint federal-state program, provides health coverage to over 70 million low-income Americans, including children, pregnant women, the elderly, and people with disabilities. The program covers a wide range of services, from routine checkups to critical treatments, making it indispensable for those who cannot afford private insurance. Cutting Medicaid would not only affect individual health outcomes, but could also strain the entire healthcare system, leading to higher costs and reduced access to care for everyone. SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, helps put food on the table for over 40 million Americans struggling to make ends meet. The program is particularly crucial for families with children, the elderly, and those with disabilities. By providing monthly benefits that can be used to purchase food, SNAP helps to alleviate food insecurity and improve nutrition among low-income households. The proposed cuts to SNAP would not only increase hunger, but also have long-term negative effects on health and educational outcomes for children. The debate over these cuts is a reflection of broader societal values and priorities. While some argue that reducing government spending is necessary for economic stability, others contend that the social safety net is essential for ensuring that all citizens have the opportunity to thrive. The proposed cuts to Medicaid and SNAP have sparked widespread protests and advocacy efforts, with many calling on lawmakers to consider the human impact of their decisions. As the debate continues, the future of these vital programs hangs in the balance, and the lives of millions of Americans remain uncertain. Section 4. Empty plates and untreated illnesses, the real-world impact of proposed cuts. The proposed cuts to Medicaid and SNAP would translate into real-world hardship for millions of Americans. For families already struggling to afford healthcare and put food on the table, these cuts could mean the difference between stability and crisis. Under the proposed cuts, millions of Americans could lose access to vital healthcare services, leading to untreated illnesses, worsening health outcomes, and increased medical debt. The cuts to SNAP would force families to choose between paying rent, buying medicine, and putting food on the table, pushing many further into poverty and food insecurity. Section 5. A chorus of dissent reactions to the plan from across the political spectrum. The reaction to Trump's tax plan has been swift and polarized, with Democrats and Republicans lining up on predictable sides of the issue. The plan has sparked a nationwide debate, with each side presenting their arguments passionately. Democrats have condemned the plan as a giveaway to the wealthy at the expense of the poor and vulnerable, arguing that it would exacerbate income inequality and undermine the social safety net. They emphasize that the tax cuts disproportionately benefit the richest Americans while leaving middle and lower income families struggling. Many Democratic leaders have taken to the streets, joining protests and rallies to voice their opposition. They argue that the plan would lead to cuts in essential services such as education, healthcare, and housing assistance, which are crucial for the well-being of millions of Americans. Republicans, on the other hand, have largely defended the plan, echoing the familiar refrain of trickle-down economics. They argue that by reducing the tax burden on businesses and high-income earners, the plan will stimulate investment and economic growth. This, they claim, will ultimately benefit all Americans by creating more jobs and increasing wages. Republican leaders have been vocal in their support, holding press conferences and media appearances to promote the plan's potential benefits. They believe that a thriving economy will lift everyone, and that the tax cuts are a necessary step to achieve this goal. They argue that extending the tax cuts will stimulate economic growth, leading to higher wages and more jobs for all Americans. Proponents of the plan point to historical examples where tax cuts have led to economic booms, suggesting that this plan could have a similar effect. They also highlight the potential for increased business investments, which could lead to innovation and expansion in various industries. Supporters believe that the benefits of the tax cuts will eventually trickle down to all levels of society, creating a more prosperous and dynamic economy. However, even within the Republican Party, there is some unease about the potential political fallout from cutting popular social programs like Medicaid and SNAP. Some Republicans worry that the plan could alienate voters who rely on these programs for their basic needs. They fear that the cuts could lead to increased poverty and hardship for vulnerable populations, which could in turn create a backlash against the party. This internal conflict has led to heated discussions and debates within the party as they try to balance the desire for tax cuts with the need to maintain essential social services. The debate continues with both sides firmly entrenched in their positions, and the future of the tax plan remains uncertain. Section 6. A billionaire's crusade, Elon Musk and the push for austerity. Adding another layer of complexity to the debate is the vocal support for spending cuts from billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk. Musk, known for his ambitious ventures in electric vehicles and space exploration, has emerged as a surprising voice in the debate over social programs. Through his Department of Government Efficiency, Musk has advocated for significant reductions in federal spending, including cuts to programs like Medicaid and SNAP. Musk's stance has drawn both praise and criticism. Supporters applaud his willingness to challenge the status quo and push for greater fiscal responsibility. Critics, however, argue that his Silicon Valley perspective fails to grasp the realities of poverty and the importance of a strong social safety net.